just say God bless the whole world with no exceptions.
Yeah.
And then we're going to ask everybody, starting with David Teller, and we'll move from left to right. We'll let David Teller just give us a wellness check on how he, his family, and loved ones are doing.
Thank you, Brother Omowale. Everybody's well. We're very blessed that everybody is well, and we've come through some challenges, but we've been blessed also to get through those challenges and come out on the other side intact. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, we'll move to Dr. Randall.
Well, health here is good. I'm looking forward to a root canal tomorrow. Sounds really exciting, but other than that, everything going well here. My son's mother-in-law passed away, so that's I didn't know her, so it's a different issue, but otherwise okay here.
Well, deep condolences, and I don't know if I need to give some a shout out to the guard who controls anesthesia or not, but I wish you well with that root canal.
Yeah.
Miss Nancy Edwards.
Well, we're doing well, and we're glad that it rained, and hope it'll rain some more.
Yeah, and I guess that's a validation of that old saying. It's what good news is. What is good news for some people is bad news for other people. Because I'm thinking if you said something like that in certain parts of the country, you might be the target of some invectives. I would say it like that. You wish it won't rain. But thank you so much, Nancy. Reverend David Johnson, how you doing?
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm well, and we are trying to assist my wife in getting past a bout with pneumonia.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
Yeah, she was hospitalized for about 4 days this past week, and so she's home now and in full recovery mode. She's fussing with me, so she's doing all right.
Okay. Was that a post-COVID complication?
It most likely, according to her physicians, probably most likely was. Yeah. And you know, she has a compromised immune system issue as well. So, but yeah, man, you know, she's a tough cookie though, bro, because she was walking around with this stuff for about 3 weeks.
Oh. Yeah, my goodness. Pneumonia sends a chill up our spines. It's real frightening for those of us who are older. So give Andrea our best regards.
She's sitting here listening, so she hears.
Okay, wonderful, Lynn. Wonderful.
Thank you.
She's an educator, and we used to say that the religious people were our last line of defense, but it looks like the educators are now our last line of defense. So we thank you for the work that you do with future generations. God bless you, Andrea. Brother Wilbur Taylor, how you doing, brother? Okay, I'm trying to raise my hand, Wilbur Taylor. While I'm doing that, Brother T, I'm gonna send him some type of is your mic active, sir? T, is your mic active?
It should be.
Okay, now we can hear you. Yeah. How are you and your entire family doing?
We're doing fine.
Okay, how's mommy? How's mommy?
So we're celebrating.
Okay, we having some problem with his systems resources, so we're gonna come back to him. Let me ask you if Crystal or anybody from Congressman Green's office is on the line. Okay, I don't get a response. Let me ask, who's at, okay, Al Green's connected now. Who's at 0428? Last four digits, 202? That might be Nathan Bennett. But anyway, we'll activate there in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, Councilman Green, we'll be with you in just about 35 seconds.
Oh, no need to rush. I have a funeral that I'm supposed to be in at this very moment, and I'm supposed to be in with you. So we're going to make this work, but there's a lot going on in my world. I'm mobile right now as I'm speaking to you. So
Okay, well, I tell you what, we're going to suspend what we need to do, and we're going to come directly to you right now, and maybe that'll give you a few minutes before you get into the funeral.
Okay, do this. Do what you need to do, because I need to set up my apparatus in my car here, in my vehicle. So give me
Okay.
I need about a minute or two more, okay?
Okay, good.
Okay.
Now, Latanya, I don't recognize your name, but we are very happy to have you here. Just tell us a little bit about who you are.
I've been on the line before. I probably
Okay,
just never
wonderful.
shared my camera. I'm a friend of Cassie's, a Toastmaster. We're part of a couple of clubs together. And I've been on. I'm just coming on. Haven't been here for a while, and I'm in good spirits. I hope everyone is too.
Okay. Well, look, in the interest of time, going directly to Councilman Green, we had a few things that we wanted to talk about. He actually requested to come talk to us, and know we want to talk about Slavery Remembrance Day. I want to just give him some congrats, because I was at the breakfast last Saturday, and it looks like that he had a strong turnout for the Slavery Remembrance Breakfast. And also, we wanted to have some comments about the January 6th Commission and the FBI raid on ex-President Trump's home, and what all of that means in terms of the threat to democracy. And we wanted to ask him to please give a hand clap, a shout out to our friend Jared Nadler, who won his bid for re-election in the state of New York. So Congressman Green, if you want to abridge or amend any of the agenda that the items that I just said to, and good morning, Cheryl, we'll come back to you later, but Congressman Green, we'd like to give you the floor at this particular point.
Well, thank you very much, dear brother. You and I have had a long-standing relationship, a history of involvement, a history of activism together, and I always enjoy being in your company. Thank you so much for all of your many years of service, and my apologies to everyone for appearing to be in a little bit of disarray. I had this meeting scheduled first, but I received a call from a person who asked me if I would come to the funeral. His father died, and he wanted me to have words at the funeral with reference to his father. So I could not say no, and would not say no to a request from a person that I know well who made such a request. So I'm supposed to be in the funeral, but they understand that we have a little bit of a delay, and I will attend the funeral. To move to the Slavery Remembrance Day. This call could easily take up the entirety of it. I will try to abridge my comments such that I don't let it absorb all of the time that we have. I am going to start with the genesis of this, which was a belief that I held that if we could have a 9/11 Remembrance Day, a Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, and we should have these, and we have a Holocaust Remembrance Day, we should have it, then we should have also a Slavery Remembrance Day. I will admit that I was a voice in the wilderness initially, but good ideas and things that are meaningful to people have always been things that I felt would, in time, mature and become more acceptable. There are many people among the persons of African ancestry who don't really care to discuss slavery. We have been conditioned to believe that somehow we were responsible or somehow we have some liability associated with it. And of course, this is not true. We are, our foreparents were victims. They did not bring themselves to this country. They did not enslave themselves. It became a mission for me to move forward with this. So we filed a resolution in the House of Representatives for Slavery Remembrance Day. And I'm proud to say that without going through a lot of what happened, we were able to get that resolution to the floor. It was HRES 517. But it's important to remember this. There are righteous people of all complexions. And I'm proud to say that the majority leader, Mr. Steny Hoyer, gave me his word that he would bring this to the floor for a vote. And he also signed on to the bill as a co-sponsor. So I'm very proud of what he did to help bring this to the floor. And of course, all of the other leadership had to acquiesce or consent because leadership has a role in bringing things to the floor. So I thank all of them for what they have done to bring it to the floor. That would include Mr. Clyburn, the speaker. It would include Mr. Jeffries, all of the persons associated with leadership. Well, once we took it to the floor, it passed 218 to 207. And upon passing, we thought it appropriate for us to have a slavery remembrance breakfast. And we did put out a clarion call to the members of the clergy and the community for a slavery remembrance breakfast on the 20th of August, because on that day in 1619, the first 20 enslaved people known to be enslaved people were brought to this. There can be a debate about other dates, but generally speaking, 1619, August 20th is widely accepted, and I don't deny that there may be other dates that can be debated. But upon having 1619 accepted and getting the resolution passed, we decided to have the breakfast. And we put out this clarion call, and we predicted that we'd have 1,000 people in attendance. We had over 1,000. It was one of those rare occasions when there was great unity, great harmony. But as Bishop Dixon put it, a lot of love. We were there to honor two stalwarts in the community, Reverend William Alexander Lawson, the founding pastor over at Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church, and Reverend F.N. Williams of Antioch Baptist Church. And we had of course, the clergy and all of many of their parishioners in attendance. The event, I thought, went quite well, and I was very much excited after the event was over, excited about the attendance, excited about the agenda that we had. And I announced at that event that we were going to establish an anti-racism agenda. The anti-racism agenda is something that would allow persons who have legislation that deals with racism to present their legislation. Many times we have persons who present legislation to the various houses of Congress, perhaps the state legislatures, but they don't have a preview of that legislation in other venues to the extent that I would hope that we could get them. For example, I have a piece of legislation that deals with discrimination in lending. We make it a crime to steal a person's future by denying a person who is qualified for a loan, by denying that person a loan. This is the first time in history such a thing has been done. And the Honorable Maxine Waters, who chairs the committee that I sit on, the Financial Services Committee, where I am the chairperson of oversight, she allowed that to get to the floor, helped to get it to the floor. And that legislation actually passed the House of Congress. Well, there was no big parade. There was no hurrah. When legislation like that passes, it gets a quiet salute, if anything, and sometimes will just fade into oblivion. But it passed. Well, we wanted to make sure that this kind of anti-racism legislation has a forum, and we believe that Slavery Remembrance Day would be a great place for us to have a Slavery Remembrance Day breakfast and legislative update, which could include this type of legislation. So we were elated after the event occurred, absolutely unbelievably thunderstruck by the attendance and all of the success that we had. And we retired to talk about how we were going to handle an event at Bishop Dixon's church. Bishop Dixon was very much instrumental in this, as was Reverend Max Miller, a good number of other ministers. We retired to plan for the next day's service. And then we received word that the president, that would be President Biden, issued a statement acknowledging Slavery Remembrance Day. Now, our ultimate goal was to get that done, to get the president to acknowledge it, to get the country to acknowledge it. Because in the final analysis, my position as it relates to myself is this: I am a proud descendant of enslaved people, a proud descendant of the people who built the Capitol building itself, a proud descendant of the people who built the roads and bridges, and people who made America great. They are founding mothers and fathers of this country. And we should not be ashamed to be associated with people who worked for centuries without a payday, and America benefited from it greatly. So I believe that we ought to have this Slavery Remembrance Day commemorated annually, and we ought to do it to the same extent that we have a Memorial Day. Those persons who are commemorated on Memorial Day, they died for this country. They were in our military, and I salute them. I'm not a guy who fails to salute the flag, but I defend those who choose not to. I'm not a guy who decides that I won't sing the national anthem, but I defend those who choose not to. That is a right in this country that you have in terms of your freedom of speech and your freedom of association, which is another conversation. So my position is that these persons who sacrificed their lives, they were born into slavery, many of them, and died in slavery, sacrificed their lives for this country. They ought to be memorialized to the same extent that we have others memorialized on Memorial Day. Again, I'm always a voice in the wilderness until the voice is heard and others start to appreciate the verbiage that I espouse. So I'm very proud of what we have been able to accomplish. We're going to have a celebration, commemoration next year, commemorating the lives, and then celebrating the fact that those persons have the shoulders that we stand on, because we've gone from slave ships to judgeships. We've gone from being called boy and girl, commonplace to call a black man boy and a black woman girl. We've gone from those types of titles to being presented as Mr. President and Madam Vice President. So we don't deny that we've come away, but we also don't deny that we have a great way to go. And Slavery Remembrance Day will be a means by which we will hopefully, and I prayerfully, never allow such a thing to happen again, but also indicate that we still have a way to go. I'm appreciative for you giving me the opportunity to share just those abridged thoughts about Slavery Remembrance Day. With reference to the January 6th committee, that committee is still functioning. I think that it's very efficacious. I think that it has presented evidence of the president's involvement in the insurrection. These are my personal opinions. I think that the president has been involved in the insurrection to the extent that there is probable cause to arrest him for crimes associated with the obstruction of the lawful transfer of power in this country. Now, whether we will do it or not, I can't prognosticate, but I can say that were those people who marched, protested, as they would say it, I would say who engaged in the insurrection, Had they been people of color, I think there would have been a different response. And I think that if this president were a person of color, there would be a different response. Color is still a major issue in this country, which is why I have called for a Department of Reconciliation. We have not reconciled in this country. Someone would say reconcile means that you at one time were on good terms and now you need to make up. It also means that you need to make some adjustments, some atonement, you need to address issues that you have not addressed that are creating chasms between people. And I think we need a Department of Reconciliation with a Secretary of Reconciliation, just as we have a Secretary of Labor for labor issues, a Secretary of Commerce for the business community. We need a Secretary of Reconciliation to deal with all of the invidious discrimination of whatever form. That would include anti-Semitism, racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, homophobia, all of the invidious phobias. We need that department with undersecretaries. It needs to be properly funded, just as the Department of Commerce is funded, the Defense Department is funded. And I have contended that it ought to have funding that would be the equivalent of 10% of the Defense Department. That way we know it'll always be funded because we always fund the Defense Department, and we should. So that, in my opinion, would help us to deal with a lot of the inequality that we see. But back to the commission, it has done, I think, an outstanding job so far under the leadership of the Honorable Benny Thompson out of Mississippi, Chairperson of Homeland Security, whose budget is second only to that of the Defense Department. He's done an outstanding job with this, and I'm very proud to be associated with the committee. I sit on the committee. And Mr. Thompson, as the chair of the investigation, they've uncovered things that clearly we've seen with our own eyes what has happened. I need not give you a narration. You've seen it yourself. It's been played out on television, live and in living color initially, and then thereafter, many taped versions of it, video versions of it have been played. We saw it. And if there's a person who does not believe it was an insurrection, my comment is there is no one so blind as he who won't see, not he who can't see, but he who chooses not to see. You have to choose not to see that this was an insurrection. And if you choose not to, you may. It's a free country. But I'm going to point out that that's what you're doing because it's clear that it was an insurrection. Having addressed the insurrection and the slavery remembrance issue, I'll pause for a moment to see if you have a few questions for me. The persons have come over to the vehicle. It may be time for me to go in and speak. I'm literally at the facility where the funeral is taking place, and I will be going in just a moment. But I would like to take a few questions because I think people ought to be able to explain themselves. These are my positions. I can't help myself. It's my life's work. I was born into it. I can't escape it. And I choose not to escape it. Some do, but I choose not to try to escape it. I am who I am, a proud descendant of the people who built this country from the ground up, the mothers and fathers of this country, the founding mothers and fathers, and they were enslaved people. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be recognized for the life's work. They put their lives into this country, and they ought to be recognized for their life's work. That's where I stand, proud to say it, won't ever deny it.
Omar Wally, this is David Taylor, Honorable Councilman Green. As we remember Harvey, the 5-year anniversary, what we're being advised is that numerous individuals who lost their homes still haven't been compensated and given a chance to recover from that. Can you tell us what has happened?
Sure, I'll give you much. I could probably take up another program with that. Here's what happened in a nutshell. We appropriate the funds in Congress. We send it, but the government isn't big enough to administer funds in every state, especially a state the size of Texas. So we charge the governor with the responsibility of getting that money to the people who need it. The governor is in this state decided that the government land office, the GLO, would be the entity that would manage the funds under Mr. Bush. And to make a long story very short, there was an attempt by the GLO to give money to a greater percentage of money than deserved to areas that were inland than the areas that were at the epicenter of Hurricane Harvey. Houston, Harris County was at the epicenter. The initial plan was to give Harris County $0, to give Houston $0. We fought that. Then there was some adjustments made. But in the final analysis, fasting forward now to today, actually it was about a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, HUD announced that the GLO and the way they were working with a formula to distribute these funds were discriminating. That's been the problem. You got a governor and you got a person at the head of GLO, both of whom have gone out of their way to avoid disseminating this money equally and fairly to people who are of low income, people who need the money more than a good many others who've received money. And I think everybody who needs it should get it, but some have greater needs than others. And they have just declined to do this. And then HUD has found that they discriminated. So we're at a point now where HUD will probably have to ask the Justice Department to intercede and bring some sort of litigation against the state of Texas to get the money to the people who need it. That, my friend, is a travesty. It is just unbelievable that we find ourselves some 5 years away from Harvey, and we've sent the money to the state of Texas, but the state of Texas has acted as it has on many other occasions. It has discriminated. It was in the state of Texas that a man right in Houston, Texas had to file a lawsuit to end white primaries. And thereafter, the state of Texas said, well, okay, no white primaries, we'll have white pre-primaries. The state of Texas has a wrong history, a long, wrong history of discriminating against people of color and others, people, poor people. And I regret to have to give you that report, but I gave you the truth.
Thank you, Congressman Green, for that answer. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other observations? Anybody? Well, I think that we're going to release you, Congressman Green. I did want to say that I'm hoping that some folks will collaborate with me. I would like to see Slavery Remembrance Day become more of a day of action and a day of service. In a similar way that we've been relating to the Martin Luther King holiday as a day on rather than a day off, whereby we would have mobilization of the community in civic education projects, community cleanup projects, gun violence prevention projects, addressing the question of maternal mortality. So I'm hoping to work with your office and the planning committee on trying to get the citizens to not have a day where we go to the park and we barbecue and drink a 16 or 32 ounce, but we actually have the entire community mobilized in a day of action.
I'm in complete agreement with that. And that's the intentionality, that it not be a paid holiday, but that people decide for themselves that this is so important to me that I will stay at home on this day and I will do things associated with the betterment of my community, the betterment of my country. And that means talking about the invidious discrimination that occurred and doing something about the invidious discrimination that's taking place, and talking about the needs that you have articulated so well. I think that this is our opportunity to build from the ground up a day of remembrance and action. I completely concur with your thoughts.
Judge, let me close by saying that sometimes we overlook the cost of being at the tip of the spear in trying to change the narrative, shift the paradigm in this country on this question of color. Du Bois said that the question of color was the central paradox or the central problem of the 20th century. Had no idea that it would be still a problem of such importance in the 21st century. On January the 1st, I just to illustrate that there is a cost with taking these actions. I think that probably about 12 noon or 12:30, we were watching CNN and we were watching MSNBC and Fox. And so what we decided to do is when we saw the inflammatory, incendiary language and the hostility of the crowd that was gathering, I decided to call Congressman Green. And of course, I did not get him. I think that might have been close to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Central Standard Time. But he called back and I asked him if he was aware of the crowd that was gathering and who were getting ready or were already in the chambers. And he said no. And so I told him that they had breached the chambers, that they were going through the chambers, that they were hostile, they were disruptive. And but I think that his video was lost and he had been requested to get to a secure area where they could sequester. I saw Senator Dianne Feinstein laying down on a bench, but I was able to say to him is that the Capitol has been breached and there's imminent danger. Take shelter. And I said that to say that there's an element out there. If we don't do what's necessary, and I want to give us a hand clap to Merrick Garland, but if we don't do what is necessary, these people, they have blood in their hearts, they have blood on their hands. And Congressman Green, I hope that you will continue to employ an abundance of caution, and all of the other people who Benny Thompson and everybody else is not to relax, because these elements are the same elements that were involved in the Oklahoma City bombing and the same spirit that was behind the attack in Buffalo and other places. So I'm asking you to do what's necessary to ensure your personal safety, because you represent a lot of interests of many of us, and try to make sure you can keep yourself whole through this continuing crisis that we're having in our great country.
Well, I thank you for your kind words and your desire to have me behave in a judicious fashion and concern for my safety. Yes, I was on my way to the Capitol because we had specific times that we could be in the actual Capitol when you called me. So I did not get your initial call, and I was told by officers who stopped me that we need to take you need to go to a safe place because of what was happening. Well, I chose not to go to what was called the safe place. I told them I had to go back and be with my staff. I wasn't going to let them sequester me. I like your diction, it's superb. I wasn't going to let them sequester me in a place where I would be safer than the people that work with me. So I went back to my office and we locked our doors. We put our phones on silent or vibrate, and we stayed right there in the office, and we were able to get visuals of what was going on the television. But it was not a day that I care to recall with any degree of fondness. It was a sad day in the history of our country. And it's one of those days when people ought to just acknowledge the truth that they have been able to see. But if they choose not to, we can't force them. But we can say that it's not because they don't see it before their very eyes. It's because they choose not to acknowledge what they see. And finally, this on the question of safety. I do travel as safely as I can with as much protection as I can get. But I'm reminded of the words of Dr. King, Brother Omowale. He reminded us, and believe me, I have no death wish. No death wish. I desire as long a productive life as God will give me. But Dr. King reminded us, and most people don't know that he said this, that a person who hasn't found something worth dying for isn't fit to live. A person who hasn't found something worth dying for isn't fit to live. I choose to have a long, productive life, but I also believe that we have issues that we allow our ambition to prevent us from having a hands-on experience with. Because if I, as a congressperson, wanted to be governor, then I wouldn't say the things that I'm saying. I don't care to be governor. I'm not running for mayor. I'm not running for another office. I refuse to let ambition prevent me from dealing with the issues, the great issues of our time. And I have found that that is one of the reasons why we find ourselves moving at a snail's pace on issues that are prominently on display before our very eyes. You just have to decide that here's where I stand and do the best that you can where you are right now. That's what I attempt to do every day of my life. And I'm grateful that I have friends like you to watch my back to the extent that you can. I love you, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be heard.
Okay, sir, we're going to let you check out and go support your friend, have solidarity with your friend who lost his father. I'm going to say, I'm going to try to end this on a light basis because it was somewhat solemn, the last set of words that you gave. I'm going to just say what the blues singer said is that every dog has his day. And if you're a good dog, you might get two.
Thank you, dear brother. Thank you.
All right. God bless. We'll be back with you and give Crystal our regards for facilitating this.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, folk. We're going to give you an opportunity. You know, you can certainly put in the comments in the chat that you want to, because I'm trying to capture any comments that are in the chat. But let me ask any of you who are here as to whether or not you have any comments to wrap this segment up.
Omowale, I'm just going to say that I applaud you for giving us the opportunity to have this face-to-face with the congressman. We just appreciate the fact that you're able to accomplish something like that. It gives us a great opportunity to really get firsthand information from the person who's at the center of what's happening in Washington, D.C. I applaud you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. And I thank you for the question that you did ask about Harvey. I would like to have some more conversation about Harvey and what's happening with the General Land Office, because we've had that discussion in many quarters. So that was a very important question. I think that there's some elements that could not be discussed just because of time in terms of the people who have been so severely impacted by Harvey. And I think that in this area, we had 3 major floods in maybe about 90 days in this area. So it's a terrible time that we were undergoing, and we certainly have sympathy, and we are empathic with those folk who are now dealing with Mother Nature in other parts of the country. So we'll have that discussion going forward. And thank you so much, Flying Tiger. Okay, does anybody else have an observation or comment before we move this section? Yeah, one thing I would say is that in talking to congressmen and people of the position and stature of Congressman Green, What I like to say in terms of for a more perfect union, we assisted in building this country, enslaved people. We didn't build it ourselves. We assisted in building, along with a lot of, with multiple ethnicities, multiple cultural groups, is that it was a collective effort, but we had an outsized role in doing that. But I just wanted to bracket the words assist, because we want a multiracial unity, a multicultural unity in this vision for a new America. Okay, well, I'm done with that. We're going to move the agenda, and folks are welcome to get in touch with me. In terms of the senior follow-up that we had with Ms. Bradley, I'm hoping that folks will look at a few things that I've tried to attach somewhat in a, let's say, I won't say a primitive, but maybe somewhat in a feeble way. I've tried to attach a few things to what you all should have in the agenda to make sure that everybody understood that the qualified income trust and the Lady Bird Trust is something that we needed to look into. My wife and I have a qualified income trust. It's really my sister-in-law's trust, but the idea is that she's in a nursing home, and with that qualified income trust, we can prevent them from coming back and confiscating assets that she might have an interest in, as long as we have the qualified income trust. It's irrevocable, and you can't, not only is it irrevocable, every penny that my sister-in-law has to go into that qualified income trust, whether it's from a pension or whether it's from some assets like a bank account or checking and savings account. So the importance of it to us is that if either one of us, if we had to go into a long-term care, a nursing kind of facility, we're going to have to divest of certain income if we wanted Medicaid to help us out or to pay that amount on a long-term basis. But Medicaid run by the states is that after we decease, the idea is to come back and recover what Medicaid has spent to take care of us in a nursing facility. So if we don't have these instruments in place, Medicaid is going to try to recover the taxpayers' dollar.
Brother Omowale, I'd just like to say on that subject, my wife and I are going through that very same thing as we speak. The state is trying to recover money that they spent for my mother-in-law while she was in that healthcare facility. So you're absolutely correct. That's something that everybody really needs to pay attention to.
Whether you have a Mercedes 450, 650, or whether you have a Ford Taurus, like I have, if the value of it is above the Medicaid limit, and you're going to receive nursing care from the state, you got to divest, so you got to sell that car. If you got over $2,500 or whatever the amount in the bank, you got to get rid of that money. Otherwise, you can't get those benefits. So, but there are instruments in place that we don't know about. And I want to say a word about the Lady Bird Trust that she talked about. So on the Lady Bird Trust, which I'm hoping that you all would check it out, it's really no such thing as a Lady Bird Trust. I mean, but it's colloquially referred to as a Lady Bird deed. I mean, it's referred to as a trust, but it's a Lady Bird deed in actuality. And so with that deed, this is another way to thwart, to head off Medicaid estate recovery. And the thing about it is that we have a resource in terms of Miss Bradley, and some of these resources can be employed without you bankrupting yourself or your family coffers to get things in place, because with many who have a disability, there are disability rights organizations, and they have attorneys and they elder law attorneys that you can get without any fee, because if you just go out and get an attorney, you could be dealing with $125 to $135, $325 an hour or more to do this work. So I do recommend that you get in touch with Miss Bradley and you start doing that work with your family. Any comments, observations? Okay, and also the whole question of wills and the whole question of advanced directives, like do not resuscitate. Because I know we went through a crisis because we didn't have a do not resuscitate for my wife's mother. And it sent us into a tizzy and a frenzy because we had to research how we were going to deal with the question of somebody who had no brain activity, but they had a heart strong as a 17-year-old. And they were in there about 80 years old, but there was no reasonable chance for any kind of recovery. And so the question, but what we end up doing is that we actually researched how the Catholics viewed it. So the Catholics will not prohibit from the ecclesiastical authority. They have more or less a mandate not to prohibit water. They can prohibit food, but they won't let you die from water or starvation. And so it seemed like the most humane way to deal with the waning period of my mother-in-law's life. But I think that that's something that you all have to look into, all of us have to look into in terms of do not resuscitate and other advanced directives and how we say goodbye to the people that we love. Does anybody have a comment or question or observation? Well, we gave you Miss Bradley's information. She's located at the 3rd Ward Multipurpose Center, and you can get an appointment with Miss Bradley, and she's trying to start a mobile eviction legal service for seniors who are being evicted from their apartments, especially amidst this inflation in rent for seniors. So go by and see Miss Bradley and support her where you can. I wanted to say just a word about the September the 7th. That's a Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Boy, we hope that you all can come out to our press event. We've been building the coalition. We have about 40 or 50 community-based organizations. We have maybe, I hope, 100 or so individuals who are part of this to roll back or amend permitless carry. And we've gotten a full-throated endorsement from the mayor. The event's going to be at 2 o'clock in the Legacy Room at City Hall. And we need to have the broadest cross-section of the community there at on September the 7th at 2 o'clock. Does anybody have any comments or observation? Let me ask the question. Is there anybody who definitely cannot come? Okay, Johnson can't come. Okay, good. But I see everybody else, nobody else has raised their hand. Nancy, is that you cannot come?
No, I wanted to ask if the First Unitarian Universalist Church was signed on to that.
Yes, ma'am, they are. And matter of fact, I want to thank Reverend Mays, because when I don't have the name of the person that represents the First Unitarian, but what they did is that they checked on the petition that they signed that we were free to use their name. The First Unitarian. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for signing on, and we've had other faith-based organizations to sign on also. So we're doing pretty good. I think all 40 or so members of the Houston Peace and Justice Coalition, they unanimously signed on. The Texas League of Women Voters has signed on. Shape Community Center has signed on. Project Voter Turnout, David Taylor and his cohorts have signed on. So we are gaining momentum with this coalition. I'd like to talk to you all sometime about the politics that's going on in the community in terms of the pushback against repealing or rolling back 1927. We don't have enough time today, but I will try to see if I can have that conversation with several people. Anybody have any comments or observations?
Senator Raleigh, I just have a question. You go ahead, ma'am.
Oh, I was going to say, Jacqueline Potter here. I would like to say that I'm waiting, or we're waiting to hear back from the Panhellenic to see if we'll be able to list them nationally. But in the event that they don't get permission in time, the Panhellenic members will be participating singularly. And of course, the Panhellenic is all the Greeks.
Yes, but thank you so much for that outreach. And Shara has been working with Ms. Potter in regard to that outreach to the Panhellenic. So anyway, folk, I'm going to be in touch with you all. Hopefully you'll get an invite on through a For More Perfect Union email that gives you details about attending the event. And we're going to try to do this event in such a way that it is not a spreader, and I won't say a super spreader since we have the vaccine and booster, but we're going to try to do this event as safely as we possibly can. But Johnson, I understand because like you said, Andre is in a period of recovery. And I don't know, I'm probably in the same position you are with Jimmy. But at any rate, we're going to see what it is that we can do in terms of keeping this event safe for everybody. Would like for you to know that a person who is indestructible that is on our call, and that person is Shara. Shara is recovering from COVID. Yeah, and I tell you what, she's looking pretty vibrant to be recovering from COVID, but I talked to her about some of her symptoms in terms of fever and those kinds of things yesterday. Shara, is there anything that you can tell us?
Hey man, I'm my gratitude meter is off the chart. I'm just happy to be on the downhill side of this. I'm grateful that it was not, it was pretty mild actually. I had a low grade fever for 3 days, but I was able to continue, pretty much a daily routine, but at home, but I've been at home most of the time anyway. So I'm just, very grateful, for all the good wishes that I got, family, so I understand better now that, we can't let our guard down. We really have to, continue to do what we know we have to do. And it may be inconvenient, but getting sick is not convenient. So thank you for the comments, but yeah, I'm just very grateful, to feel good and to be here, period.
Yeah.
Well, in that vein, I'm gonna tell you the same thing. I close with Al Green. Every dog has his day. If you're a good dog, you might get two. And look like you've gotten two.
I'm
All right,
thankful for the two.
No, I love what you said about the gratitude meter. And because I know it doesn't have to be like that, but we're gonna be hoping that you have a continued recovery. And in the area of recovery, you know, Jeff Reese, who was the chairperson of Houston Peace and Justice, he has multiple myeloma, and he has been trying to recover with some real, I won't say radical treatments, but he has had it's been quite an uphill climb for him. So we want to lift Jeff up. One of our friends, Pat Rito, she had some violent kidney stones, that excruciating kidney stones that sent her to the hospital. She's still in the hospital. So I also want you to lift Class Jeanette up. My niece, Keisha, her colon cancer metastasized to both her liver and her kidney. And so we're dealing with a real crisis with my niece in that regard. But we want to lift everybody up who is sick. I want to mention that this is probably the 5th or 6th consecutive year, but we will meet at the Mickey Leland statue right adjacent to Miller Theater the Saturday before Thanksgiving. And not behind, but the Saturday before Thanksgiving. We're there from 12 to 12:30. A tribute to him and the kind of global contributions that that he made. So I'm hoping that everybody will be able to come out to that event if you're able. I'd like to mention in terms of that event that it's real informal, and it is laid back. And in November, we don't have any meetings at all. So we don't meet in the month of November at all. And we might make some modifications when we go into the holiday season in December. So folks, if you all have anything on the agenda that you think that we need to press into any type of any of our future meetings, don't hesitate to suggest this, because let's keep in mind that we're an informal organization. We don't have constitution, we don't have bylaws, we don't have officers, we just have volunteers, but we've been able to keep this going for, I think, over 3 years, this effort. But we are going to have to be very innovative in terms of how we go forward, because we are going to, I don't think that we, I guess they're using the words compassion fatigue and burnout interchangeably, but I don't think that necessarily that they equate the same thing, compassion fatigue and burnout. But at any rate, right now it's been okay for us. It's been good to us as we going forward. I want to encourage you all that there are a few new people that we need to bring back. And my closing comment will be that I know that some people had pictured a doomsday scenario for progressives going into the November midterm elections. I never did buy into that view. I always felt that this is a centrist country, in that if you overreach too far to the left or you overreach too far to the right, that was going to be a penalty that you were going to pay. when election time came along, and I think that the extremist wing of the Republican Party, they can trot in celebration in the primaries, but they're facing a wholesale behind kicking when you get to the general elections. I might be wrong about that, but I do see signs that the onslaught that was supposed to take place against the Democrats because they've overreached on reproductive control, and the January 6 commissions have shifted the narrative about the major threat in this country is no longer inflation, it's no longer climate change, it's the threat to democracy if the polls are correct. So I think that we'll have somebody to double down and give us a recommendation on where to send our nickels and quarters, what candidates that have a reasonable chance of winning. Does anybody have any comment on what candidates have a reasonable chance in Texas and nationwide of winning?
Well, in Texas, I think Beto has a reasonable chance of winning. I really do. And I think a lot of it has to do with the blowback about how Governor Hot Wheels handled the Uvalde issue, misinformation, and his politics in general, especially referencing overturning the Roe v. Wade. Raphael Warnock is going to win in Georgia. Herschel Walker is blowing himself out of the water. And the boy got CTE, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, and then the last thing I wanted to say, Brother Omowale, in regard to our elders and how we deal with situations with our parents, et cetera, et cetera. I found out when my mother-in-law died that the absolute best way to figure out what to do when somebody gets to that point in life, you need to ask them well before. You know, my mother-in-law wanted to talk to my wife about situations, what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. My wife didn't ever want to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when my mother-in-law passed, before she passed, she was on a respirator. She was on a ventilator. She was on life support, pretty much. She didn't have any brain activity. And she agonized my wife about what to do. And it was painful seeing her agonize because I had no, for lack of a better term, I had no skin in the game. I couldn't help her make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
I would not have even tried to help her make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't my place. And thankfully God took her, without having to deal with, relieve my wife of that pressure. But I implore anybody who has a parent still alive, find out what they want if you have to drag it out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So day of the funeral, when I went to pick my mother up on our trip back from Texas City, those are the questions that I asked her.
Mm-hmm. One,
because I didn't want to find myself in that position. So that'll be my last word. Find out what your parents want and tell your children what you want.
mm-hmm. Thank you. Nancy, you weren't trying to make a comment, were you?
No.
Okay, well, what I wanted to say, Johnson, thank you for that. I know if I try to sit down and have a discussion with both of my girls, I know they're going to lock up and they're going to try to find a way, a diversionary way to get away from that discussion. So it is a trying discussion to have, but it should be done, Johnson, as you say. But I think that we're on the way of trying to face this question of saying goodbye head on. And so we, we have to have a start in place in order to do that. And I think that now, in terms of the exposure that we've had with Miss Bradley, one of the things that we didn't have a chance to discuss, but she was asked to discuss, how do you make the decision to go from independent living to assistant living? How do you make that decision, or when is it the right time, not the right time, the right time to go from independent living to assisted living? So maybe you all have some comments on that. I'm not trying to get an answer to that question at this particular point. I wanted to say that I have had some communication with Miss Layo. I want to reiterate that Miss Layo and her family, the Nigerian woman who was trained to be a physician in Ukraine, that they actually fled Crimea in the 2013 invasion. And we have been talking about some ways to get more of the community, especially the faith-based community, involved in peace and justice concerns. And those of you who like her book, you can get it on Amazon. Okay, well, I'm done. We're going to let people check out in any shape, form, or fashion that they want to. It's kind of like they said in the churches, as long as it's decent and in order. Yeah, but decent and in order is a subjective. Okay, so Ms. Bradley, we're going to let you check out first in any way that you want.
My checkout word for today is, let's keep this race going.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for your role in keeping us viable to be able to do this. So thank you so much. Nancy, I'm gonna go to you next, please.
Well, I'm impressed at how much people have taken the last 2 weeks ago, our discussion about end of life issues and what we need to do in the legal sense. And I looked up this Lady Bird deed, and I decided that even though, I'm an educated person, I'm going to need some help to understand all this. So I'm thinking I might need to be consulting Miss Bradley to get on the right road with that.
Okay. And and if the group wants me to bring in an elder law attorney who can answer these questions, I know several elder law attorneys, and I guess because I've helped them, get a house in Canary Islands or Fiji or somewhere through them exhausting my pocketbook. They're somewhat beholden to me to do something charitable, from the way that we've enriched them. So if the group wants, if we want somebody to bring somebody in without any remuneration, I think that we can do that. You just have to let me know.
I'm all for it, man, as long as they're not going to try to speak in legalese.
Okay, yeah, no, these would be some people that, and you know how to decipher, drive them to where they can talk some common people language if they do try to legalese things. So there's no doubt about that. Ms. Potter, you have a closing comment? Jacqueline Potter, we're gonna move the agenda then. Ms. Latanya, happy to have you with us. Okay, Ms. Potter's here. You have a closing comment, Ms. Potter?
My only closing comment is I would just like to reiterate what you said about September the 7th. and encourage everyone to try to come, because we're putting a lot of effort in this to make it happen, and it can't happen without everybody on this call.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Potter. And thank you for your outsized efforts to make this happen.
And
Okay,
hello,
Ms.
Miss Shara Aguirre.
Hi, how are you?
Want to, you and I have been talking on the phone, so we know each other's voice, and now we know each other's face.
Yeah, yes, good to meet you this way.
Thank you, thank you.
And thank you for your leadership on this. Appreciate it.
Same to you as well.
Yeah, both of you all have wonderful voices. Brother T. Can we let him know his mic is not on?
Now. On now.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay, good. I wanted to say, concerned about those of us who are doing so well right now. Well, hopefully they will all be in prayer of each other and get through this, so we can be strong to deal with the issues that are out there. But one thing I want to lift up Shay Taylor having her 50th birthday.
Wow.
She and the family taking near to out. They just got, and of course she will be her birthday in a delayed fashion with multiple females in our family. So looking very forward to that. So I guess I'll just have to sit back and learn. But I just want to lift her and all the fruits of all of us. Share others who are very grateful, while these children, all of us are doing so very well, and we're very of it. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen. All right then. Yeah, you need to be beaming with so much pride as daddy. I know that daughter of yours, and it's like she came to a portal into the universe in terms of all of the talents that she has. So God bless. And I think on 50, she's going to be that she and my daughter are going to be together. And so I think that's so wonderful. Okay, Brother Randall.
Yeah.
Dr. Bob Randall.
Yeah. All right. Well, I had a couple of thoughts. Let's see. One was this question of topics to explore. We've been talking a lot about elder care, and by some coincidence, almost everybody on this call looks pretty elder.
Okay.
And it's not surprising that we look
Thanks,
elder
Dr.
and we're
Bob.
discussing elder issues, because we're all very familiar with them. And we need to be more familiar with them. But every decade of life has got its issues. Every decade of life has got activist issues. If you take 0 to 10, what are the issues there? What are the issues for poor people with kids 0 to 10? What are the issues? So, I mean, I'm just saying, teenagers, what is that? And, if you're in your 40s, and I'm just saying, so there's plenty to talk about. And it might attract people that weren't quite as senior as some of us are. That's one kind of thing. The second thing, just generally, is because I'm a cultural anthropologist, I would tell you that the various peoples that made up this continent, they all have got major things that they contribute and major challenges their ancestors overcome. Slavery being probably about as bad as you can come up with in terms of challenges. but there's a lot to say there. And the more people in general in this country appreciated the strengths of what the various strains have offered, the better off we'd be. And I particularly think, you know, what did the kids see when they go to the museum? You know, what do they learn about things? And I'm just saying that because we're so ignorant of so much of this stuff. There used to be signs that said "No Irish need apply." There's a song about that famous singer back in 1910 sang a lot. No Irish need apply. And so, I mean, it's not. What I'm saying is that it's really important to focus on the challenges that people have had, but it's also important for everybody to understand them and to understand that everybody is in that category. So that's all I would add. And we need to build a much different consciousness in this society of what people have done, you know.
No doubt.
Positives as well as the negatives, I guess is what I'm saying. We've had a lot of really bad people in this country and a lot of really good ones. Anyway, okay, so enough of that.
Okay. Yeah, Ndugu is a word which basically means brother, is sometimes referred to as uncle in Swahili, but I'm gonna say Ndugu Bob Randall. I want to thank you for those comments that you just mentioned. I think that while we have to have a lot of self-determination around being proud of our ethnicities, we also have to be aware of whether or not we have too much chauvinism in a multi-cultural country. I'm reminded when I'm in South Africa, I've been to South Africa 4 or 5 times, but when I'm in South Africa, they speak 12 official languages. And believe me, some people, like my friend who was in Black Panther movie, she speaks all 12 fluently, Connie. And so when I'm in South Africa, I'm aware of the fierce ethnic rivalries that take place, especially in terms of, you know, dominant kinds of groups like the Zulu. I just tell you a little joke. When Shaka Zulu came in contact with the Germans, and they introduced, and the British, they introduced the fact that they had a god that had a birthday, and Shaka Zulu said, "What kind of people are you where your god has a birthday?" Hey, folks, we're gonna leave that alone. We're gonna leave that alone, but I wanna thank everybody so much. I'm gonna try to incorporate some of these topics going forward. I've been particularly concerned about cognitive decline, cognitive fog, cognitive impairment, these memory diseases, as to how we can avoid these memory diseases. And so that's initially why I started talking to Ms. Bradley. But Nancy, consistent with what it is that you say, we are going to get some further light clarification on some of these topics. And so in God's willing, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. May the force be with you.